Welcome back, hard forkers, to our second show today. This one, look, I know it will have affected many of you. We've sort of woken up to the news that the SEC has gone after Richard Hart, also unincorporated companies, I believe, in PulseX and PulseChain. This is pretty fascinating. We've all been personally touched by it, I believe. I'm not sure, Baloo, did you ever purchase any of this or sacrifice? No. So how about we start off with you giving us your thoughts on, we've discussed this many times. If you give us your thoughts around how you thought this was structured and the good and bad of that.
Yeah, so, without getting too nerdy about the smart contract of Hex, and it's really only Hex that I have done a ton of research on. I don't know much about PulseChain or the differences, but with the invention of a bonding curve, I'm already sounding super nerdy. Your liquidity in a liquidity pool determines price based on a ratio of supply and the ETH that's in the pool. But what Hex does is when you stake your Hex, you're not actually staking it anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere. It's actually being burnt. And the Hex community knows this. They have no problems with it. The Hex is being burnt. Now, what this does to the price of the liquidity pool is it changes the price. So, first you buy the Hex and then you remove it from circulation. So you buy it from Uniswap and then you stake it and you effectively remove it from the supply. This manipulates the market cap. So effectively, if you bought $100 worth of Hex and you staked that $100 worth of Hex, you've now taken another $100 worth of Hex and removed it from the supply. So you effectively have, the purchasing power of $200 worth of Hex, even though you only paid $100. So this is why Hex pumps. It pumps because it has so much buy pressure, because every time somebody buys, not only are you applying buy pressure, you're removing the supply and changing the bonding curve ratio. The inverse to this is also true. Hex can dump very, very quickly because not only when you sell Hex, you also have to unstake it. And when you unstake it, you're minting new Hex. So you have selling from the mint, selling pressure from the mint, and then you actually take it and you sell it and it dumps the price further. So it's a purchasing power multiplier. And that's the con. That's the scam, in my opinion, that I've been trying to explain to people for a long time.
Okay, so look, we'll I've got very mixed feelings on this, and we're going to have a pretty lively debate coming up. So stay with us, people. Obviously, this is all over the press at the moment. Here's a couple of articles that are sort of breaking right now. But before we get into a bit of a chat on our thoughts and how we're approaching this, what's likely to happen, could we have a quick look at the charts? I'm assuming that I've lost a shit ton of money this morning, so this will be a little painful.
I actually don't hate the chart. I'm not a fundamentals guy. I'm not a fundamentals guy, and this is a bottom. Like, here's the caveat, okay? And this is true with any crypto. If Hex survives, I think we're at the bottom. Like this chart is showing a bottoming pattern. It couldn't be at a better price as far as a bottom, in the context that this can recover and this can go to new highs. If the news and the fundamentals truly does kill the project, you're not going to get a pump. But, most of the value's been erased. It's all gone. You're at the bottom. This is in an accumulation zone, and it's either going to flatline, or it's gonna go up one day. But
so, coming back to what you were trying to explain to the audience before, effectively, when you're saying there's a bottom here, if people started buying this thing again and staking it, you would get a much bigger parabolic move than on other.
And that's what's unique about blockchain products, is they're immutable. You can't stop people from doing this. This protocol lives on the blockchain, and you can't shut it down. You could put Richard Hart in prison, and Hex can still moon. So, if you're a believer, it's a real leap of faith, but I don't hate this chart.
That's interesting.
It's at a bottom.
Yeah. And, I think, a key point there before we get into the debate around Richard and this project, he effectively toyed with the SEC from day one on this. So, the point you're making there is this sits on a blockchain. They're suing him, Richard Schueler, the individual, not a registered entity in Hex, because there isn't one.
Right.
So, yeah,
The
interesting.
protocol is going to keep doing what it's doing. And the protocol is a money multiplier, both up and down. That's the key thing to realize. Everybody focuses on the pump, but the same contract dynamics that allow Hex to pump also allow it to dump just as aggressively. So it's just a multiplier. It's like those bull bear tokens that Binance and FTX used to have. It's just a direction multiplier.
Yeah, and I guess the big difference there, isn't it? Because obviously you've got lawsuits against both of those companies. We all hate Sam Bankman-Fried, another man that's run away with my money, but they're not suing him. They're suing a company, an entity. Hex is not an entity that is going to court. The directors of that company, etc. So so that's quite interesting. I hadn't really. I should have thought about it in those terms, but yeah. So I'm certainly not going to sell what
I don't think.
I guess kind of worthless at the moment, but just sitting on it.
It's the same story with a lot of the alts. If you rode this all the way down, why are you going to sell here? Like
because you're panicking.
Anything, you
didn't understand what you just said.
If anything, you take if you're buying up here and you haven't already doubled your position, I would fucking double your position because your cost average. It's not financial advice. It's just how markets work.
What you would
do. If you were up here, if you bought your first Hex up here, anywhere in this zone, you probably paid a couple grand, right, for your position. It would only cost you a couple $100 to double your position down here. That's it, but it's a conviction play. You gotta,
Okay, now
I have conviction.
I also sacrificed a bunch of coins. I haven't actually even looked. To me, it was one of those ones where I just didn't feel confident enough that things were stable for me to start clicking buttons on MetaMask, etc. So I don't actually know how much I sacrificed, but I believe it was somewhere between 5 and 10K, probably at the upper end. But if we could see the pain on my face as we look at the price of the PLS token today for us,
sure.
So those not familiar with this is the PulseChain, which Richard Hart launched.
Well,
once again, my understanding is this is not a incorporated entity.
No, it's a blockchain product. It just exists on the blockchain.
So once again, how they'll be suing him. And basically, the article is linked below, and I'm sure we'll throw it up on the screen in the edit. But the SEC are effectively primarily going after, from what I can tell, for misappropriation of funds that people sacrificed to this PulseChain. So 354 million US dollars worth of tokens were sacrificed. Now, he was being quite clever in getting around securities laws by saying, look, you're sacrificing these tokens for free speech. This is not an investment with the intention of making money off others' efforts. It was hilarious watching all this play out because he really toyed with them. So basically they're going after him saying, well, hang on a minute, fella. You've taken 12 million US dollars worth of that 354 million that was sacrificed to the PulseChain, and you've bought the world's biggest diamond, a bunch of Louis Vuitton bags, Ferrari, a Lamborghini, I believe, blah, blah, blah. Now, this guy has just been so in your face, showing all this off. I could never wrap my head around what the hell was going on here. It was almost like he wanted this court case. So, we've got a lot of fascinating times ahead But I just want to reiterate the point that this is an individual being sued. It's going to be fascinating how this plays out, and just
I think so too.
Yeah, it really is. This is a biggie. So yeah, talk us through the chart. What's happened in the last 24 hours specifically?
Well, what happened in the last 24 hours is if you had a sacrifice price, if the token launched at this price, which is some fucking bunch of zeros and then a number, we're close to it. So,
Right.
Whether you sacrificed or not, if you feel that you missed the sacrifice price or the ICO or whatever the fuck we're calling it, we're back to that price. It's not for me. Like, I'm not interested in PulseChain. I'm barely interested in Hex. I do, maybe I'll take a punt on Hex, but it's not going to be much.
Okay. I'm on record as saying, we've had Richard Hart on the show before. It was a pretty lively debate. I can put a link below to that video if you want to watch it. I think it was one of our most watched videos. And, we asked some tough questions. He got a bit fiery at times. But my attitude with this guy, and I'd followed him right from back in 2016. He was part of a trading group that I followed. I think it was called Whale Pool. He was a hardcore Bitcoin maximalist. There's a ton of his early videos where he literally ripped founders of other projects to pieces. That was his thing. That was Richard Hart. So he always had my attention. I've always followed him. I found him a fascinating character. That these last couple of years, my attitude has been better the devil you know. Now, the fact that he's, and this is why this case is going to be so interesting, because has he been smart enough where he's literally, I think everyone kind of knows he's probably the person behind these blockchains, but has he exposed himself for that to be proven? Can they prove that? Are they suing an individual? How will this play out? And when I say better the devil you know, that sort of flows into, well, how much money have we all lost on, say, DeFi projects that founders are completely anonymous? I've lost multiples of what I've lost on PulseChain and Hex. I have no idea who those people are at all. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of shit thrown in this guy's direction, but let's not forget he, that's kind of my big thing here. How smart is the guy? We're about to find out.
Yeah.
He's going to have to prove that in court. It's going to be really interesting. These are blockchain projects. They roll on. The other ones that I have, I don't know who the hell's behind them, and I'm down more than 90%. And that's true for millions of people out there in this space. So I think it would be wrong to vilify this guy too much at this point. Let's see how all this plays out.
Well, his biggest enemy is not anyone other than himself. I think that he's a very good example of, in the year 2023, snitching on yourself is the coolest thing to do. And you see I think I talked about this last show, but you see how Richard Hart on Twitter tries to convince everybody that he is not that guy anymore. Well, I'm sure he's backpedaling more to try to cover his footsteps a bit, because if he gets caught up in something in the next couple of months, I believe that a large part of that will be because he was such an egomaniac and he did things based on clout instead of intelligence. Because like you said, he's a really smart guy. He's probably one of the smartest guys around, one of the smartest guys in crypto. And I do give him credit for showing his face and being out there and not being a garbled voice with a picture of a penguin for, in every web call he does. But on the other hand, he might also be doing that because he wants people to see how awesome he is and see his face. So, I mean, I think that Richard Hart has nothing but bad intentions? No, I don't know if I side with him completely on he has this theory, this thesis that all he wants to do is help people. And he's always giving and giving and giving. And why is the SEC coming after me? All I do is give. And I mean, he's partly correct. I mean, there's people out there doing murderous atrocities basically in the cryptos field that are getting no attention. But long story short, I do believe that any way he gets screwed, it's because of his past transgressions as a ego megalomaniac, and he made a mistake, because that's how he's going to get caught.
I also think those characteristics might get him out of this. You know,
Exactly.
he credit where credit is due. That guy is a amazing debater. He is incredible. He has
best
a
I've seen in the
rebuttal.
space.
He has the rebuttal for everything. He's probably going to go without a fucking lawyer, or like he's going to try and like defend himself. Like he's that fucking crazy that he would just, you know, try and do a lot of his trial defense on his own, because he is so sharp. You know, I do think he's not a nice guy. I think he's kind of an evil genius personally, but he's a fucking genius. And I think that you know, he's probably going to baffle enough brains to get him out of something in the legal system.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to reiterate the case that has been brought against him is for misappropriation of investors' funds, specifically in PulseChain. And that number is 354 million, including some money from both Jesse and I. And they're going after him for 12 million of that specifically. The SEC has brought 140 cases, and all of them have ended in some sort of enforcement action. Now, you'd have to think they're pretty damn sure. So that 12 million to me is quite a small amount of what ultimately is $1 billion roughly that went into Hex, PulseChain, and PulseX. Well, sorry, wrong. Into PulseChain and PulseX. That's $1 billion just in those two. So for them to be going after a $12 million specifically, I find it quite interesting. Now they must have, they must be pretty confident they got something.
I think the number's small. I think the number's small because they have evidence of this amount. But, you know, it's interesting. They say misappropriation of funds. And I know he's going to take this angle. What were the funds appropriated for?
Right.
You know, nobody ever made any promises. He's the king of never making promises. So what promise was made to investors that certain funds were going to go towards certain actions? At what point did he say, you know, these funds are not going to buy fucking Louis Vuitton bags and private jets for me in a Lambo? Like, there was never a budget or a roadmap or anything. So like the funds were never accounted for to begin with. So
yeah, I don't really want to comment on that. I haven't really sort of thought that particular aspect through properly yet. But yeah, look, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, look, when I put it this way, when I got into the space in 2016, as I say, he was one of a handful of characters. You know, there was Tone Vays, Richard Hart, really not that many people. And that was his big thing. He had the founders of the EOS, numerous other projects that all failed, and he tore them a new asshole. And just, you know, technically he literally showed an audience, okay, you're completely full of shit. So a lot of eyes on this. This is going to be a big story. I'm sort of coming away from this chat, Baloo, feeling not as bad as I did last night and this morning, going, oh my God, I'm down all this money. Because, bizarrely, they're going after an individual. This is a project on a blockchain that will roll on. It'll be there effectively forever. So might even have a little flutter.
We'll see. We'll see. You know, if people start buying and staking, the price will go up. Or even if, you know, Richard Hart could be dead. And I'm not insinuating anything. I'm just saying, like, this project, as long as Ethereum keeps ticking, this will always be a smart contract on the Ethereum network.
Yeah.
So if people buy and stake, the price will go up. And the inverse is true as well. So
yeah. Jesse, any sort of closing thoughts on this one?
No, other than the only thing I say about Richard Hart is that everything that Blue described about how Hex works and what we're talking about, sacrifice and all that. I know a little, but I don't know that much. So this is one of those projects where I'm betting on Richard Hart, and that was before he was being, subpoenaed or whatever the hell is going on with him now. So, now it's like I got to double down on my belief in Richard Hart. But it's like but it's a very valid, interesting point you make, with Blue, which is that if you invested in Hex anytime prior, and we're here now and you haven't sold, why the hell wouldn't you? Not advice, but that does seem like one of the good ideas that could possibly be taken. It's just
you're not going to get
already in it.
Yeah, you're in it, and it's going to cost you pennies on the dollar to double down.
Yeah. I mean, the fascinating thing here, without wanting to sort of repeat myself too much, is he has just pushed that SEC button on hundreds of videos. It was just to the point where it's like, please sue me, as the only way I can wrap my head around that behavior. It's just been so freaking obvious. Now, is he as smart as many people think? We're about to find out. I kind of hope so. Otherwise, it's just narcissistic, ego gone wild. But we're going to find out.
Get your popcorn.
Yeah. But the big difference here, obviously Sam Bankman-Fried, who's still eating foie gras and sticking a dildo up his ass at his parents' place, bizarrely not behind bars. That guy's run away with a fuck ton of people's money, including mine, many family members, many of our friends. And, the way that's being handled by the SEC, I think, is pretty goddamn shameful. We've also had Ripple, which, coming back to the very early days in the space, that was a project and a token that I was very aware of. I owned it for a couple of days before I started sort of listening to the likes of Tone Vays explaining that this is, straight up a scam. The XRP token doesn't do anything. Now they somehow have looks like they're getting away with that being deemed not to be a security. Now that's also a company, bear in mind, that's in that court case. So, man, this is going to be fascinating. Crypto's getting super interesting.
Someone was saying that if the SEC completely loses this whole battle with Ripple, and Ripple is not a security and it's a business, then how could Hex or
they're two different things, Jesse? I mean, as Blue's explained, the Hex project, he's never said, okay, this is my project. I've incorporated the company in Delaware or Seychelles or whatever. They're suing an individual for misappropriation of funds to the tune of 12 million at this point. I believe there's a case against PulseChain. I mean, there's links below, and we'll pop these articles up in the edit as well. But these aren't. I don't believe these are registered companies. They're not legal entities. They're effectively DeFi projects, right?
That makes sense.
Yeah,
I think it reminds me of how like a pharmaceutical company gets fined like $6 million, and they're like, there you go. And meanwhile, they're like they don't have a shovel big enough for the trillions of dollars in their backyard. Is that
well,
one of these
I mean, one pharmaceutical company funds 50% of the FDA. 50% of salaries are paid by one pharmaceutical company. But don't get me started on that one. And also the 78 vaccines that have been approved in human history never had to go through human trials. Another one for you to look up, people. So we're dealing with corruption all around. For me,
Richard Hart is the enemy. That's who it is.
Yeah. So decentralized protocols. That's where it's at. That's got to be our future. We can't.
What's the Louis Vuitton stock's got to be plummeting since Richard Hart.
They would have been ripping their hair out.
Their biggest.
This guy's promoting.
What are we going to do now? Our ambassador.
Yeah, he's the Dylan Mulvaney
Yeah.
of Burberry.
Shout out Louis Vuitton if you want to sponsor the Hard Forking channel.
Yeah.
You'd look good in that shit, Blue.
Oh, well.
Yes, he's already got a wardrobe full of it.
It's true. See it right there hanging.
Okay. Look, I think we'll look to wrap it up on this note, people. Obviously, it's something we'll touch again on this on our long form show, which will air over the weekend. We'll get another trading show coming up for you in the coming days. We want to show a bit of consistency now to our community. It's great. Many of you are commenting on the recent videos, and Discord's back up again as well. We feel it's time to be looking closely at the space. If you haven't followed our trading shows, please check those out. And there's links below to those videos and the various algos we use. As I mentioned on the previous show, what we're going to be doing is comparing a couple of different strategies. One I've been using for over 6 months now. We'll see how that's performed. And I'm going to move some funds into Blue's free algo. Links to that below. Exciting times, guys. So big thank you to everyone watching, supporting the channel. Please give us a like and comment, and we'll see you again on Friday. Cheers, everyone.
Yeah. Good one.